So there's been an absolutely enormous Warhammer 40k release week announced today. We've got the core update coming to the game's primary missions coming, 2 new codexes for Genestealer cults and sisters, 2 new battle forces, 2 combat patrols, and 3 new standalone character miniatures. Let's talk about what's coming. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought I'd talk through the big 40k releases coming out this week, going through each one in turn, as Games Workshop really have dropped quite a lot of stuff. I honestly kind of suspected that Sisters and Genestealer Cult would be at least a little way off yet, maybe after the Age of Sigmar release, but it seems like they're this week. And what's more, that big mission update with Pariah Nexus with the new ways to play 40k seems to be going on pre-order this week alongside them as well, so really quite a big change for 40k overall. Seems that Games Workshop decided that they were going heavy back into the 41st millennium sooner rather than later. The article hasn't long been announced at time of recording, and basically goes through all the things that are going up for pre-order this Saturday, everything going live on Saturday the 8th of June, typically around about 10 AM-ish in different places around the world, though it varies region to region. So the pre-orders will go live then, and the full in-store release for all the box sets and books and things will be Saturday the 22nd of June. For the full list of what's coming, we've got Codex Genestealer Cults and Codex Sisters of Battle. Hopefully should be interesting releases for both factions there, though I do feel like getting Codexes in 10th edition is a little bit of a mixed blessing. Some armies do really well, some armies have a really bad time of it. Hopefully there's a good amount of fun and thought being put into these though. They also have limited edition covers for both of them, Battleforce boxes for both of them, the Army of Faith and the Biosanctic Broodsurge. That's going to be the first places that you can get their new models like the Jump Cannoness and the Genestealer Cult's Benefictus. There's new combat patrols for both, which I would argue both of those were downgrades on the previous, though I still think that both of them will be usable enough for newer collectors, just not quite as good as the old ones in my opinion. And then the usual dice and datasheet cards for both armies, themed faction dice and quick reference sheets. Then for the big core game update, there's a Pariah Nexus mission deck. That's the one with the new secret missions and a few changes that emphasise battle line troops a bit more. And in all honesty, I was kind of surprised to see this one coming quite so soon. Often they tend to drop chapter approved type things alongside big rules and points overhauls. I'm guessing that's not happening this time round unless they push it forward quite a lot earlier. There's also some objective markers to tie in with the theming of that, and then a trio of further character releases, York Big Mek and the Mek Shield Captain that were waiting on their individual releases. And then for the Sisters of Battle, we've got a Priest with Vindicta, quite a cool miniature from the Blackstone Fortress series. Nice to see this one return in plastic, given that there wasn't a plastic option for a Miniatorum Priest before. Overall, it's really quite a lot of stuff, certainly going to be a busy week on the channel. I'm sure Games Workshop will give us some fun news and preview rules for both codexes, probably with the Pariah Nexus mission update as well. I'll certainly aim to cover all that all on the channel as soon as possible, plus hopefully having a pricing video out on these releases within the next 12 hours. Feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see any of that. As ever with Games Workshop's releases and pre-orders, if you wanted to help out support the channel and get a discount versus Games Workshop, I've got my channel affiliates linked in the video description. Element Games in the UK, Gap Games in Australia, Fenris Workshop in Canada, and Wargame Portal in the USA. They have between 10 and 20% off Games Workshop's miniatures, and we'll have most of these when they go live on Saturday. So if you were going to pick some stuff up anyway, feel free to order in anything through those affiliate links that you'd like to. It does help support the channel and keeps the videos coming. This weekend's yet another Battleforce release, and Games Workshop have been a bit disappointing on the supply front with Battleforces so far in 10th. I'm genuinely not too sure whether these Sisters and the Genestealer Cult ones are going to sell out instantly, like the Chaos ones or the Orcs one did. I feel like both factions are at least slightly niche in the game compared with some, and the Army of Faith for the Sisters did divide opinions. It might mean that there could be a little bit more going round than there would be normally, but in any case I'd still probably try and be prompt if you want to try and land them at a discount. Here are the go times for when the models go live. For the affiliate links in the video description, midnight in Canada and the USA, 10 AM in the UK, and midday Eastern Time in Australia. I feel like probably most of the rest of the releases won't be too hard to get a hold of. The Battle Forces could be a bit more of a question mark though. I'd probably be prompt if you absolutely know that you want them. In any case, getting back to the models and releases themselves, let's start out with that chapter approved Pariah Nexus mission deck. This one's basically an updated mission format from the Leviathan one. In previous editions, they often did chapter approved books, thin paperback things, detailing whole reams of secondary objectives and things like that. This time it's mission cards, and as I mentioned, I would have been expecting these to be coming in the next few months or so, as they said with their previous preview, maybe alongside a points update to the game, though it seems they're dropping now. I wouldn't be too surprised if there was some sort of digital updates to go alongside this, maybe releasing things like FAQs or other core changes to the game potentially. I guess we'll wait and see for more details on that front, though it could just be that the Leviathan mission deck will be updated by this, and otherwise everything else will stay the same. Obviously nothing to stop people sticking with Leviathan and keeping on playing games and that, if they want to of course, though this will likely be the one that's used in all the tournaments going forward after it comes out. In the deck you have updated primary missions and secondary missions that will be tweaked on the previous ones, updated mission rules, a bunch of which place greater emphasis on battle line and might give you more advantages for having some of them on the board. Maybe a bit of a nudge to have all armies include a few more troops. Those should help out the armies that have already good troops a bit better than most. Apparently actions are coming back as a more core rule set, rather than having to have them spelled out on every single card, with when you're allowed to start doing the action thing and all the things that you're not allowed to do. Kind of makes sense to keep that central, really. And the other interesting change is that gambits are being replaced by a new system called secret missions, getting to go for one of 4 slightly hard to achieve objectives by the end of the game, but there are 4 options, and some of them do look fairly doable, and I feel like it looks like they will be a lot more usable for more players going forward. Should be interesting to see a few more previews of that, and will be fun to have some of the core gameplay of 40k get a shake up, might make people rethink army lists and develop new tactics and things. As a small tie-in with that, Games Workshop are making a themed objective set, basically some objective markers with the right distance measured out, I guess 3 inches from the central marker, and you can just have them on the board and really easily be able to tell whether things are on a point or not. According to their social medias, these ones are just going to be a limited run though, so I guess once they're gone, they're gone. To me, they don't look like anything enormously special though. Quite a lot of third-party manufacturers do already make these, so it's not like this is anything new or revolutionary. Getting into the Codex releases next, and first up we have the Sisters of Battle. It's going down the previous Codex artwork, having the background cut away and the faction symbol in the background faintly, and there's a limited edition one featuring a penitent engine. In the teaser that they did for us earlier in the year, they confirmed that they're going to have 4 different detachments. One's going to be the standard Hallowed Martyrs from the Index, might be some of the rules changed up a bit. There's a Penitent Host one that's flavoured around Miniatorum and Penitent Engine type units, one that focuses on the Holy Trinity of Bolters, Flamers and Melters, which I think would be really fun if they managed to make that interesting and a genuinely different way to play the army. And then a fun sounding one called the Army of Faith. Apparently Seraphim and Zephyrim and things will have aura boosts to help out nearby units. Sounds kind of intriguing, though I feel like detachments with Games Workshop can just be really hit and miss depending on the exact rules that they decide to give them. So certainly be wanting to wait and see full rules before getting too excited or otherwise about them. Hopefully this one might be the book that breaks the curse of Imperial Codexes being kind of boring and weak. We've had Admech, Dark Angels and Custodes all in a row now, all of which were kind of disastrously received in their own way. A whole bunch of fairly feels bad datasheet nerfs and detachments that were kind of so-so. Really hope that they manage to turn things around for this one and give some fun and impactful rules, but manage to keep things not overpowered. I guess we know there'll be a new jump pack Canoness for the Sororitas, so that'll be one new datasheet in the Codex. It remains to be seen if anything will be changed in War Gear or removed though. Next up we've got the Battleforce in the Army of Faith. This one's the limited edition launch box that goes out alongside the faction, and then when it's gone it's gone. It contains the new jump pack Canoness, 15 Seraphim or Zephyrim and an Exorcist. If it's priced like the standard Battleforce sets they've come out with, it's not really going to be a very good feels good box set in my opinion. The main reason being that you're getting spam all of one unit, which is kind of fine. I do quite like the Seraphim and Zephyrim, but it might just be more than some people want. And as kits for the sisters go, I would argue it's one of the worst value ones, as you only get 5 models for the same price as say 10 Space Marine Hellblasters or Intercessors or something like that. It's just one of the worst value kits in the Sisters of Battle, which are already kind of expensive. It will still be at a discount though, so if you did want a very jump pack heavy Sisters of Battle army and you like the Exorcist model, they're still going to be useful to some people, but might just have a bit more niche appeal than if they'd chosen some other units in it. The Jump Canoness I think is a pretty reasonable addition to the range though. It will be fun to have a jump pack character to lead Seraphim and Zephyrim into battle. It does feel like they're doing quite a lot of jump pack characters in 10th edition so far. This one used to be a model for them in days gone by, so I feel like it had to be at least fairly high at the top of the wish list for Sister Battle players. And as character models go, I feel like it's fairly well done. Really quite a lot of war gear options with things like power swords, mauls, halberds and eviscerators for two-handed loadouts, hand flamer pistols, and head swaps and things. If the datasheet's like the on-foot one, it might give reroll hits to its units, and could be fun for getting enhancements into units like Seraphim and Zephyrim as well. Otherwise, we've got the Sisters Combat Patrol, which the reception of which was quite muted, a standard Canoness, 10 Battle Sisters with a full multi-part plastic kits rather than the monopose ones that they had before, 5 Celestian Sacrosants, and 10 Arco-Flagellants. When I did a big review of the Combat Patrols, it did rank in towards the lower half of the popularity out of them currently. It still wasn't one of the very worst. I think as it goes it's alright, but maybe not quite as exciting as the previous one, at least to my mind. You do get the core HQ and the core troops, with multi-part models for both now, plus 2 units of fairly fighting melee infantry. It's not going to be too many points in game, but at least that's a fair enough selection of core units to get an army started. Feels like it'd be useful for newer players, but it did feel like the last one was just kind of fun, getting a transport, a penitent engine, and a whole bunch of random smaller squads, even if you did have the downside of monopose models. Finally, for the Sisters release, we've got the Miniatorum Priest with Zealot's Vindicta. This one previously came out in Blackstone Fortress, and I feel like this was quite a nice one to come back and actually have as a model that you can get separately, as it's just quite a fun one. A pretty awesome big chainsword paired with a flamethrower, kind of mad on 40k. And certainly good news for the Miniatorum Priests, which, given that they don't have plastic kits at the moment, it's quite nice to actually have a plastic kit, as otherwise they sort of get at threat of being removed from the book. It does feel like it's got a bit of a parallel with how the Cultist Firebrand got a release in Chaos. A lot of those Blackstone Fortress miniatures are really quite cool, and definitely feel like they're good enough to be part of the core range. Otherwise though, we've got the Forces of the Four-Armed Emperor. Codex Genestealer Cults has 5 detachments in. Kind of interesting that a faction that's maybe considered a bit more niche than some gets so many, but I'm sure the mutants of the Genestealer Cults won't be complaining. The Index detachment with the Ascension Day is going to return in some form, though it might well have tweaks, as is the case with plenty of the other detachments that they've had so far. Beyond that, there's a sort of outrider force of fast movers, which I guess would support things like Ridge Runners, Jackals, and maybe things in transports. A melee-focused army in the Biosanctic Broodsurge, which they said was going to largely focus on things like pure strain Genestealers and Aberrants, so lots of violent close combat action there. Some kind of horde-focused army, which could be kind of terrifying as Genestealer cults have got some fairly good chaff units, and then a detachment that's going to specifically help support a Brood Brothers themed force. They said that that one would be up to half your army taken in Astra Militarum units, and presumably have some sort of stratagems that might be able to help them, I'd guess. I feel like that's one of the most intriguing, and might be one of the most obvious ones to be usable for my own collection. We will be getting a new datasheet for that Benefictus model as well, in the big anti-tank Psyker. Speaking of which, their Battleforce box is the Biosanctic Broodsurge. This one gets that Benefictus, the Abominant, 5 Aberrants, 10 Pure Strain Genestealers, 10 Neophyte Hybrids, and 2 Goliaths that can either be built as trucks or rock grinders. When I did a breakdown video of this one here on the channel, I did think that it looks like an alright box set overall. Certainly seems like a solid start to the army, particularly in the context of the combat patrols having gone away. And quite nice that it doesn't have any overlap with the new combat patrol, so you could get both and have quite a reasonable start to a Genestealer army. I feel like perhaps the biggest downside might be the Goliaths and Aberrants, which if you collected an army that was built up out of the old Combat Patrol box set, you might well already have those in ample numbers. And I guess that could theoretically mean that this one's a bit more relevant for newer players than ones with big established collections. If the pricing keeps true to what it's been before, then it does look like it's at a fairly reasonable discount as well. The new model in this one is the Big Brain Benefictus. Basically, Games Workshop trying to make a human zoanthrope. This one is theoretically an anti-tank psyker with a great big warp lance shot, plus giving lethal hits to his unit, I think they said. I say as that goes, that's kind of helpful for Genestealer cults. Their thing often tends to be about units popping up from nowhere and taking chunks out of things with a lot of damage. Feels like he could be pretty directly helpful for that if you wanted. I guess he would need to be weighed up against things that provide buffs to the units, like say the Primus though. The model's certainly a weird one, though I guess that's not too unusual for the Genestealer cult. I think it is going to be one that divides opinion a bit. Maybe a few people think it looks silly, though I do think it's a fairly fun one. The Genestealer cults really are in a place where they've got a pretty crazy amount of support characters though. Certainly feels like they're a bit oversaturated with them compared with a bunch of other armies. Finally, for their main releases, they've got the Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol. This one unfortunately replaces the really good one, the one that was basically one of the best combat patrols in the game with the Goliath, Aberrants, Acolytes, 2 neophyte units, and the Magus. To be fair though, I feel like just about anything that they did replace that one with was almost certainly going to be worse. As it goes, I feel like this one is nice enough though. You get 2 units of Acolytes, 1 unit of Jackals, an Achilles Ridge Runner, and the Jackal Alphas. Having multiple Acolyte units is definitely handy, and the other 2 are definitely usable enough. The Achilles Ridge Runner tends to be fairly auto-include at the moment for its AP debuff rule. Overall, I'd still say that this one is one of the more usable combat patrols out there, though perhaps Genestealer Cult of one given theme rather than a bit more general purpose like the last. As mentioned, I do feel like it fits in alright with the previous combat patrol sets and the new Battleforce box set though. It might be having some units like the Jackals that perhaps not every single cult player has in large numbers. Finally, for the both of them, we've got the dice and datasheet cards. The Genestealer Cult faction dice are purple with white symbols. The Sororitas ones seem to be a sort of darkish grey with black symbols. They both have the faction dice where the 6 would be. They tend to be at least fairly popular, handy enough reference cards to have the datasheets to hand in game. They're not essential purchases, of course. Finally, for those of you who weren't tempted or couldn't find the Auric Champions or the Stomper Boys, we've got the Custodies and the Orcs characters leading them. Both of these are coming out separately. The Orc Big Mek I did think was really quite a fun new miniature with his sort of exo frame with big guns and claws mounted. I felt like his rules were maybe a bit of a letdown for such a cool model though. He just doesn't really seem to be particularly focused with doing any one thing for his unit. I guess maybe might be one of the most useful things in Dread Mob to give the Mek keyword to knobs or boys if you want to, I suppose. Otherwise, the Custodian Shield Captain is the actual dedicated model versus the ones that you can buy in the kit. This one gets his Melter Spear, and he was the one that everyone made fun of for being a little bit chunky and squat to the ground. I feel like at least part of that is the way that he's photographed. Plus, I'm not really sure that the head crest and the sort of stance that he has help with it either. I feel like the Auric Champions Battleforce maybe had a bit of its thunder stolen by the pretty good Custodes Combat Patrol that came out alongside, so there might have been a few people holding out for the Shield Captain at a later date with a solo release, so I guess that's the chance now. In any case, certainly sounds like it's going to be a busy week on the 40k updates. Let me know your thoughts on the releases and your hopes for the Pariah Nexus, Sister of Battle and Genestealer Cult rules updates. I'm certainly looking forward to digging into them here on the channel, and I'll hopefully be back in the not too distant future with another video to run through prices for these releases and talk about how good they're looking. As mentioned, if you were looking to pick these up when they go out for pre-order on Saturday, feel free to check out the links in the video description to save money and support the channel a bit if you'd like to. In any case, looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Hopefully I'll see you in future videos later this week. And finally, before I go, I'll just mention the channel's Patreon page, the primary way in which I can keep on making all these videos quite so regularly, having YouTube as my full-time thing and making new videos each day. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages as well, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.